You know what struck me most at our Thanksgiving dinner this year? It wasn't the turkey or the cranberry sauce. It was watching my neighbor, Margaret, trying to explain to her daughter why their Medicare costs had suddenly doubled. Margaret is 71. Her husband Tom is 73. They've been retired for about 6 years, living on Social Security. And their retirement savings doing just fine, managing their budget, knowing where every dollar goes, the way people do when they've spent decades being careful with money. But something happened this year, something that caught them completely off guard. And honestly, it caught me off guard too, because I thought I understood how Medicare worked. Let me back up a little. 2 years ago in the fall of 2024, Margaret and Tom made what seemed like a smart decision. They owned a small rental property, just a little 2-bedroom house on the other side of town. Tom's father had left it to him years ago, and they'd been renting it out for extra income, maybe $600 a month after expenses. The tenants had moved out in August, and the place needed work: new roof, some plumbing issues, electrical updates. They got estimates, and we looking at maybe $25,000 in repairs. Tom said to Margaret one evening, I was there having coffee with them. I remember this conversation. He said, you know, we getting older. Do we really want to deal with landlord headaches? Any more fixing toilets, dealing with tenant calls? Margaret agreed. She said, let's sell it, take the money, put it somewhere simple. Maybe ACD or some bonds. Less stress. Made perfect sense to me, honestly. I was thinking about doing something similar with a property I owned. So they listed it in September 2024, sold it by November. Nice clean sale. BD bought the place years ago for about $180,000, sold it for $275,000 after closing costs and commissions. They walked away with about $85,000 in profit. They were happy, relieved, even no more landlord duties, no more repair bills. Just a nice chunk of money in the bank, earning interest. Tom said to me, Robert, this is going to make our retirement so much easier. And I believed him. Fast forward to this past October 2025. They're opening their mail, and there's a letter from Social Security about their 2026 Medicare premiums. Margaret called me that evening. I could hear the confusion in her voice. She said, Robert, I don't understand this. Our Medicare Part B is going up to $464 each. That's $928 total every month. I said, wait, that can't be right. The standard premium is $203 for 2026. She said, I know, that's what I thought too. But look at this letter. It says income-related monthly adjustment amount, IRMAA. And that's when it hit me, that house sale in 2024, the $85,000 capital gain. That income pushed them over an IRMAA threshold. See, here is what nobody tells you about Medicare. And this is the part that makes my blood boil a little, because it's so important, and so many people don't know it. Your Medicare Part B and Part D premiums aren't just based on whether you have Medicare, they're based on your income, but not your current income, your income from 2 years ago. So in 2026, your Medicare costs are determined by what you earned in 2024. For most people, this doesn't matter much. Their income is pretty stable. Social Security, maybe a pension, some retirement account withdrawals year after year, roughly the same. But if you have a one-time income spike, a bonus, a retirement account distribution, a house sale, a Roth conversion, anything that increases your modified adjusted gross income in that year, it can trigger higher Medicare premiums 2 years later. And it's not a gradual increase, it's a cliff. For 2026, the first IRMAA threshold is $109,000 for a single person, $218,000 for a married couple filing jointly. Margaret and Tom usually have about $60,000 in Social Security, and maybe another $40,000 from there. Ira's total income around $100,000, well below the threshold. But in 2024, they had that $85,000 capital gain from the house sale, so their modified adjusted gross income for 2024 was $185,000. That put them in the second IRMAA bracket, instead of paying $200-$290 per month each for Medicare Part B, they have to pay $284.10 per month each. That's an extra $81.20 per month per person times 12 months times 2 people, $3,900 in additional Medicare costs for the year 2026. But wait, there's more. And this is what really hurts. Medicare Part D, the prescription drug coverage, also has IRMAA surcharges their Part D. IRMAA adds another $14.50 per month per person. That's another $348 for the year total additional. Medicare costs, because of that house sale, $5,700 roughly. Margaret was almost in tears when she realized this. She said, "Robert, we sold that house to make life easier, and now we're paying almost $6,000 more for Medicare than we expected. We would have been better off keeping the rental property." And Tom, he was angry at himself. He said, "Why didn't anyone tell us this? Why didn't our tax guy warn us? Why didn't the real estate agent mention it? I didn't have good answers for him." The truth is, most people don't know about the 2-year look-back rule. Most tax preparers don't think to warn clients about future Medicare implications. Real estate agents definitely don't know. And even if someone had told them, would they have understood? Would I have understood if someone told me before I started really digging into this stuff? Probably not. But here is what makes it even more painful. If they'd known, if they'd understood the IRMAA system, they could have planned differently. They could have sold the house in a different year, maybe waited until 2025. So the income hit would be in a year when they weren't on Medicare yet. They could have done a partial sale or structured it differently, though that gets complicated. They could have at least been prepared financially. They could have set aside money knowing this bill was coming. But they didn't know, and now they're paying for it, literally at Thanksgiving dinner. Their daughter Lisa was asking them about their finances, the way adult children do when they start worrying about their parents. Margaret was trying to explain about the Medicare costs, and Lisa kept saying, "But Mom, I don't understand. You sold a house 2 years ago. Why is that affecting your Medicare now?" And Margaret couldn't really explain it, because honestly, it doesn't make intuitive sense. Tom finally said it's a government thing. They look at old tax returns, which is true, but doesn't really capture the full picture. I jumped in. I tried to explain the 2-year look back, the IRMAA brackets, the income thresholds. Lisa just shook her head and said that's insane, and you know what, she's right. It is kind of insane. Why should a one-time event from 2 years ago affect your ongoing monthly costs? I understand the principle. People with higher incomes should contribute more to Medicare, fair enough, but the 2-year lag creates these traps, these situations, where people make perfectly reasonable financial decisions and get blindsided by consequences. They couldn't have anticipated. The thing that bothers me most about Margaret and Tom's situation is that they're into not rich people. They worked hard their whole lives. Tom was a machinist. Margaret was a school secretary. They saved what they could. They were smart with their money. Selling that rental property was a sound decision. It was actually a wise decision. Less stress in their 70s, one less thing to worry about. But because of a rule they didn't know existed, a rule that most people don't know exists, they repaying an extra $6,000. $6,000 is real money when you're living on Social Security. That's their entire vacation budget for the year gone. That's new hearing aids for Tom gone. That's the cushion they keep for emergencies diminished. And the worst part, the absolute worst part, is that next year, 2027, they're slowly together. Medicare costs will drop back down because in 2025, their income was normal. No house sales, no big capital gains, just their regular Social Security and IRA withdrawals. So this huge Medicare bill is just for 1 year, 2026, 1 year of paying because of one decision made 2 years earlier. Margaret said to me a few days after Thanksgiving, she said, "Robert, I feel so stupid. How did we not know this?" And I told her what I'm telling you now. You're not stupid. The system is complicated, and nobody explains it clearly. How many times have you heard a financial advisor or a Medicare counselor or anyone sit down and say, "Listen, if you're going to have a big income year, you need to think about what your Medicare premiums will be 2 years from now. Probably never. We talk about tax brackets. We talk about capital gains rates. We talk about required minimum distributions. But IRMAA, the income related monthly adjustment amount that barely comes up until you're hit with the bill. I asked Tom what he wishes, had known what he wishes someone had told him. He thought about it for a while. We were sitting in his garage. He was organizing his tools, the way retired guys do when they need to think finally. He said, I wish I'd known that every financial decision has a 2-year tail, at least when it comes to Medicare. I wish I'd known to ask our tax guy what this house sale would do to our Medicare costs. I wish I'd known that 109,000 is a magic number, and anything over that starts costing you extra. I wish I'd known that the brackets are cliffs, that $1 over the threshold can cost you thousands in extra premiums. And then he said something that really stuck with me. He said, Robert, when you're young, you make a financial mistake. Maybe you lose some money in a bad investment, or you finance a car at a high interest rate. Whatever it is, you have time to recover. You can work more hours, get a second job, make it back. But when you're our age, when you're retired, there is no making it back. There is no extra shift to pick up, no overtime, no side hustle. You have what you have, and every dollar that goes out the door is a dollar you can't replace. That's why these Medicare surprises hurt so much. I nodded. I understood completely. Here is what I've learned from watching Margaret and Tom go through this. And here is what I think everyone approaching Medicare age needs to know. First, understand the 2-year look back year. Medicare premiums in any given year are based on your tax return from 2 years prior. Not last year, not this year, 2 years ago. Second, know the thresholds for 2026. It's 109,000 for singles, 218,000 for married couples filing jointly. Those numbers adjust slightly each year for inflation. Third, remember these are cliffs, not slopes. If you make 217,000, you're fine, you pay standard Medicare premiums. If you make 218,001, you're in the next bracket paying significantly more. It's not gradual, it's sudden. Fourth, plan your big income events if you're going to sell property or do a large Roth conversion or take a big retirement account distribution. Think about the timing, think about which year it happens in, because that will determine which year your Medicare costs spike. Fifth, and this is important, if you have a one-time income event that triggers IRMAA, you can appeal, but only if you meet certain conditions. You retired, you got divorced, you lost a spouse. Those are qualifying events. That let you use more recent income, but just selling a house that doesn't qualify, you're stuck with the higher premiums for that. Year 6, consider spreading large distributions over multiple years. If you need 100,000 from your IRA, maybe take 50,000 this year and 50,000 next year instead of 100,000 all at once. That might keep you below the IRMAA threshold. Seventh, and this might sound obvious, but work with someone who knows this stuff, not just a tax preparer who files your return, but someone who thinks ahead about Medicare implications, financial planners who specialize in retirement, CFPs who understand the full picture. Margaret and Tom are going to be okay. $6,000 hurts, but they have it. They're not going to miss meals or lose their house. But it changes things. It changes how they feel about their retirement. It adds stress. It makes them second-guess themselves, and it didn't have to happen. If they'd known, if someone had warned them, they could plan differently. That's what gets me. As I was driving home from Thanksgiving, I kept thinking about all the other people out there, all the other Margarets and Toms who are going to get hit with surprise Medicare bills because of something they did 2 years ago, something that made sense at the time, something that was supposed to make their retirement easier. And I thought about how we're all just doing our best, trying to make smart decisions, trying to plan for the future, but the rules are so complicated, and the consequences are so delayed that it's almost impossible to see the traps until you fall into them. I don't have a perfect solution, but I do know this. If you're anywhere near Medicare age, if you're 60 or older and thinking about selling property or taking large distributions or doing anything that significantly increases your income for 1 year stop, and ask yourself, what will this do to my Medicare costs 2 years from now? Because Margaret and Tom wish they'd asked that question, and it would save them $6,000.